Hey guys, welcome back to the booth. We are ready for round 2 of the World Magic Cup. We've got Thailand versus Sweden. They await in the feature match area now. Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. Here we're in Nice, France. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe with Randy Bueller in the booth, and we have Sweden versus Thailand in round 2 of Cons of Tarkir Team Sealed. We get a look at Love Janse. And for the Thai national team, Lars Dam.
Yeah.
Now, he's originally from Denmark, but he lives in Thailand now, and he's representing them here at the World Magic Cup.
Yeah, and he led them to quite an upset in the first round. They took out Japan and Yuya Watanabe.
Wow. That's super
Yuya's been
impressive.
hot all week, but I mean, Lars put up a great performance at the World Championships. I mean, 7-7 for 10th place out of 24. That is running well above what his expectations were coming into the tournament. And now, took out Japan in the first round, and they're running into just an awesome Sweden team.
Yes, this Sweden team is stacked.
They are one of only 2 teams in the field that can field 3 different players that have been in a Pro Tour top 8. Love Janse, we talked about. Olle Rade, perhaps you've heard of him, Hall of Famer. And then the captain is Olle Larsson.
Yeah, Olle Larsson as well. Rounding out the Thai national team, there's Lars Dam. There's also Navaphone Kazim Sunthorn and Patana Charlam Tanasak.
You happy we started on this match?
I am. And we are underway here with what looks like to be a pretty aggressive start from Lars.
Yeah.
He's got 2-drop and a 3-drop, both of them 2-power flyers, thanks to Ice Feather Avon and the Jeskai Wind Scout there. So
he's got a
pressure early.
Pretty solid teamer deck, couple of snow horns. He's got a Savage Knuckle Blade in there. Got an Arc Lightning, Ash Cloud Phoenix adds to the Air Force. Dragon Style Twins is amongst his rares. Hordling Outburst. It's a good solid deck.
This guy should be really interesting because Lova, he started things off with a really, really nice start, too. I mean, he played a rare on turn 2 with the Death Dealer there. And it's actually just way behind on this board state. Unfortunately for him, the Archer's Parapet not going to do a lot of work here against the 2 flyers. So Lars Dam could really take this game away pretty quickly if things go the way he'd like. He's already chipped away once with the Ice Feather Avon, but the 2, we call them gain lands there from Lova, have gotten him right back up. And
Jeez.
Are you serious?
Look at that Air Force.
Wow, this is an incredibly difficult to deal with curve out from Lars. Flyers, as always, are very good in this format, and there's not that many cheap ones, and Lars has all of them, 2, 3 floor. Wow, Ice Feather Avon on turn 2, turn 3 Wind Scout with no hesitation right into Ash Cloud Phoenix, the mythic rare on turn 4, and he's got 8 power on the board. Hello.
Lova does have some of the best cards in the format for recovering from this situation, though.
What does he have? It's going to have to be, what, End Hostilities?
It is End Hostilities.
Oh, now we're talking.
He also, I mean, he has a kill shot, which would be useful. He's basically Obzon, and he's built for the late game. I mean, he's got an End Hostilities. He's also got 2 copies of Dead Drop in his deck. That's probably too slow to get him out of this mess, but End Hostilities would be perfect. A couple of Debilitating Injuries would be perfect. He's got a Siege Rhino in there, a couple of Obzon guides. So, I mean, he is designed for the grindy Obzon late game win. He's just got to survive this onslaught.
Can he get to that point? He's at 16 life now, and he's facing down minimum 8 power in the air. It could be even a little bit more with a prowess trigger or something along those lines, and this is just getting ugly.
Yeah, he's got the Dead Drop, but that is not going to be fast enough here.
Not a chance.
He could smite the Ash Cloud, and he does.
Okay, so that's going to put it into morph mode, face down now.
Not perfect, but I mean, it was the only target for his only removal spell.
Right. And it's not too bad. I mean, taking 4 damage versus 8 means that he's going to get a lot more breathing room, as he was on a 2-turn clock at that early stage in the game, and he was just dead. So having that was actually quite a big deal. Now, the downside, of course, being here, though, that down the line, that Ash Cloud Phoenix could be a big issue, because when you turn it face up, not only is it a 4-powered flyer again, which is a big issue, it also does 2 damage. So Lova can't get too low on his life total here.
Good news, bad news in the middle table, by the way. Jo Larsson, the Swedish captain, has both Sarkhan and Butcher of the Horde in his hand.
What?
Doesn't have the mana to cast either of them, though.
Oh, that is miserable.
Well,
For
how miserable
Jo.
that is depends on the top of his deck, I think.
True. It's a good point. So here comes the Rakshasa Death Dealer, and interesting. So Lars is going to block here.
Huh.
And he's kind of going to force Lova to put some mana into this Death Dealer one way or the other.
I love that block.
I love that block. And Lars, you know, I think what this is, I think it's Dragon's Eye Savants. But either way, even if it wasn't, like just making Lova put mana into that Death Dealer is a big deal here. And it was Dragon's Eye Savants.
Oh,
But
jeez.
he couldn't turn it face up. And, okay, debilitating injury. Where have you been this whole time? Not too late, though, as it finishes off the Ash Cloud Phoenix. Still, though, Lova has to deal with these two powered flyers in the air here.
Yeah, Lars, I think he wanted him to spend mana so that he could flip over the Ash Cloud and just keep going. That debilitating injury was not the way Lars Dam imagined that turn going. Hordling Outburst is a pretty solid top deck, though.
Yeah.
Triggers the prowess and puts 3/1/1s into play.
Right, very solid here for Lars Dam, as now he can crash in there for 5. And that's going to drop Lova down to 7.
Yeah, I think Lars knew there was no debilitating injury in Lova's hand as of a turn ago, because it would have gotten played on basically any of the previous turns.
Yes. But that was a well-timed one there for Lova, as he has managed to stem the bleeding a bit, but
Wow, that Hordling
he's
Outburst,
got work to do.
not only was it good at building up his board position and triggering prowess, but it totally negates the dead drop that Lova's been building up toward.
Totally. Lova now has to pivot once again. He has just been under all types of pressure. Okay.
Battle Priest.
An Abzan Battle Priest. Feels like it's too slow from this standpoint.
Yeah, it'll take a turn to pick up a counter.
Yes.
Then it could start life linking. That does seem a little too slow.
That is too slow as the board sits, as he's going to be at -1 by the time he can swing with that thing. He's going to take 4 in the air here minimum. Maybe even 5, and there's definitely a difference there, because that means that if Lova were to draw a removal spell, either would still be lethal, but it's not. So he takes 4 and goes down to 3, meaning that a card like Debilitating Injury is still live for him.
Lova's got to draw something, though, right now.
He needs something immediately.
Tower
can't
Shell
win the
and Dead
race.
Drop are not getting it done.
No, if he can get counters on his creature, like something like Feat of Resistance would do it, or an Incremental Growth, that could certainly help too. And Lova just doesn't have it. Lars Dam gets off to a quick start and keeps the pressure up the duration of the game and picks up the first one for his team. I mean, that was a good draw from Lova, too. Like, his cards were solid. He had Dead Drop. He had powerful things to do, but he just couldn't interact on the ground. If those were ground creatures, he's golden. He also had the Meandering Tower Shell in hand, too.
Yeah, flyer, flyer, flyer from Lars Dam, though. Played it well.
Generally a good strategy in limited, and in this set, it's quite good. It's also quite difficult to do. There's not a lot of cheap flyers in this set. You can take a look at our feature match area, see all the flags. Looks really cool like that.
You're starting to get a buzz in the room. It's kind of nice.
Oh, it's beautiful.
You know, first thing this morning as the players were wandering in, everybody's kind of quiet, maybe just woke up, maybe kind of nervous, but now they got a round in them. Now they're just playing a Magic tournament, right?
Yep.
They got wins and losses and bad beat stories. Definitely a lot of energy in the room. Couple of early upsets, always fun. Thailand over Japan definitely qualifies, I think, as an early upset. Although, I mean,
Confirmed.
the Thai players are playing well here. The big upset in the first round, though, did you see this one? Peru over Canada.
What?
Peru beat Canada in the first round.
I mean, I don't want to play spoiler alert, but have you seen Canada's decks? Like,
really?
They've got some incredibly powerful stuff.
I thought it was an upset just on the names. Like,
it is, yeah.
I don't think anybody in the room has a better 1-2 punch than McLaren and Hayne.
Right. That's incredible. Good for them. All right, so let's take a quick live look in here at Olle Rade. He's on the left in the striped shirt. His opponent, Patana, Charlam Tanasak, and hasn't really played a lot here.
Oh, those life totals are interesting.
Look at the life totals
Herald
here.
of Anafenza plus Rush of Battle. That looks like that's what's happened. And Chief of the Edge. Jeez.
And he has managed to whittle Ole Rade down to 4?
I don't know about whittle. It seems like it's one giant Rush of Battle turn that Ole
right.
managed to stave off death.
I think you're correct. As
Clinging
I
to
see
his
in
last
his
4.
graveyard, there's a bear's companion that once was something. So
Exactly.
Yes, you're right. It looks like Patana has been content to just keep on sinking all that mana into the Herald. Ooh.
Oh, Winterflame.
Okay, Winterflame's a good start. That doesn't actually kill the Herald on its own, though.
No, but
So I guess he just taps it and then
Yeah,
kills
tap the Herald.
the warrior.
I mean, depending on the timing here, I suspect this is not main phase, right? This is probably
It looks like it's
upkeep
second
or-
main, or oh, it's his turn. Sure.
well. I mean, it means you're not going to get. He doesn't get to outlast the Herald.
It means that. It also
Yeah, it was
means that the
upkeep.
token dies. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Ole has a lot of work to do, but he does have a nice little board state here. Uh-oh. I feel an
Debilitating
injury.
injury?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Misfire Weaver is not long for this world. Down it goes. And does Patana have a follow-up play? I believe. Oh, does he have 2? He either has 2 Murderous Cuts or 2 Grim Haruspecs or something in his hand. I think I saw 2 of the same. Maybe we can look at his list and see if he's got something along those lines. But he's got 3 spells in hand. We know he's got a lot of action.
He has 1 Murderous Cut in his list.
Okay, what does he have a Haruspecs as well?
Yes, he has 1 of each.
How about 1 of each then? All right, so Ole Rade has Monastery Flock drawn. Ole, the oldest of old school players, right? I mean, he was playing in
He was the
earliest Pro Tours, literally.
yeah. His debut was PT3.
Yeah.
Did not play the first or the second, but PT3. He was the Player of the Year for Season 2, which I believe is when they invented the Player of the Year trophy.
And he's won 2?
Player of the Year is just the one.
I meant Pro Tours.
5 top 8s. He won.
And 1 win?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and an invitational win. He won his first Pro Tour.
Wasn't he
PT
young?
PT number
Wasn't he
3,
like 15
Columbus.
or
He was like
something?
15 years old. He flies over from Sweden. He was, I think, like gonna play he was qualified for the Junior Pro Tour, which they used to have back in the day. They would have 2 events going on simultaneously, but all his friends were playing the Senior Pro Tour, so he just decided to play that one instead, and then won it.
Decided to win that one as well? Oh, that's impressive. Yeah, Ole also does text coverage now at various Magic events. He's still very much involved with the game and obviously plays still. I don't think that Patana's history is quite as rich with Magic as Ole's, but nobody's really is.
Oh, Joel Wallstrom drew 1 game 1. It sounds like. I guess he drew some lands. He was the one
Certainly
with
had the
Butcher and
spells part.
Sarkhan in his hand. The Pedestrian Arrowstorm finished it off.
And then it looks like Patana's decided to trade Smoke Teller for his...
Well, he tacked his Morphin into Smoke Teller.
yeah, so the other way around.
Yeah, Uli has to block there.
He
on
must.
4. There's a Seeker and a Morph.
Is Ole going to pull himself back into this thing? I mean, when we came in, it didn't look great for him, but it's starting to look a little bit less bad.
It is? He's
I
still
guess the
behind
Herald's
on
a big
board,
issue,
and
right?
there's a Herald of Anafenza on his opponent's
That's true.
side.
The Herald's a big issue. I guess
And it's 19-4.
if he can't find an answer for the Herald, that could be a huge issue.
I mean, Ulla's fighting the good fight, but
I mean, he's got 3 spells in his hand. I figure he's doing something here. I think it's face down Glacial Stalker and leave up Force Away for Rade. He can force away the Herald to sort of stem the bleeding there as a raw tempo play. All right, well, why don't we let these 2 finish up, and we're going to jump back over to our main feature match, Lova Janse versus Lars Dam. Lars, with one of the more impressive curve outs I've seen in this format, is able to pick up the first game. Let's see if he can do it again. I have to say, like, Lova had a perfectly reasonable draw as well, just did not match up well with what Lars did. And Lars, who's mulligan significantly here, is missing a land drop, and his hand looks awful.
Yeah, mull to 5, and he kept 1 land, which sounds correct, especially on the draw, but whiffed his first 2 draw phases.
I mean, I see Dragon-style twins in hand there for Lars, and that is about 10 miles away from being cast. That thing's not coming down forever. Oh, and an arrow storm too. Like, these are just stranded indefinitely. So the question is, can Lova find an aggressive enough line here? We saw some very defensive spells from him in the first game, and here's another UC Bitter revelation. He's not exactly piling the pressure on, though. At 1 land versus 3, or excuse me, versus 4, even if Lova can't come up with some big heat, it feels like he's going to be able to just run away with this one. He'll take it, too, after that start from Lars in the game 1. He's like, you know, in the interest of justice, I will take this.
You see the 4th member of the Swedish team helping out Lova. That's Poya Nabari. The way this tournament works, it's all 4-man teams, but only 3 of you play at a time. So for the morning, each team has to pick somebody to basically sit out and go into coach mode. The Swedes chose Poya Nabari for this set. This afternoon, when they go to Unified Standard, they have to pick a different person to sit out. And so two people will sort of take turns sitting out, and the same thing works tomorrow. It'll be 3 rounds of Team Sealed, followed by 3 rounds of Standard. You pick 1 player to sit out each of those, and again, you can't double up on day 2 either.
Speaking of day 2, how do players get to that point?
Well, it's a cut to 32. So today is 7 rounds of Swiss, top 32 advance. Tomorrow, I love the format with the pods. So the 32 teams get divided up into 8 groups of 4, kind of like a World Cup soccer tournament, if you will. And then you play everybody in your group once, and then the top 2 from the group advance to the top 16. 4 groups, now it's 4 groups of 4. You play everybody in the group in the afternoon. The top 2 advance to the top 8 on Sunday. I love that day 2 format.
That is pretty cool.
It's one of my favorite parts of this event.
Poor Lars now has discarded a few times to hand size after mulliganing to 5, so you know things haven't gone well when that's the case.
You mull to 5 and you start discarding before you draw land? That is catastrophic.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see a Wooly Loxodon get Wooly here and crack in for 8 and basically put Lars Dam on a 2-turn clock. I don't think there's a card in the game that's going to get Lars out of this one. He did find a land.
Forest.
It's a miserable second forest.
He's done.
He's going to scoop
Seen
him up.
enough.
Get those morphs revealed, and Lova Janse evens things up. So right now we've got Lova and Lars are at 1 game apiece. Joel Larsson's up 1 game over Novaphone. And
is Olle still clinging?
You know, I see permanents on the battlefield down there.
Yeah,
they're still
like
in game 1.
5 to 22. Olle is clinging. Wow, Herald of Offense is still in play, too.
Interesting stuff there because, you know, Olle looks like he has managed to stabilize on some level, but, yeah, that Herald represents inevitability.
Yeah. All right, we'll see
for
if Joel
Patana.
can get one on the board for the Swedes. I don't know about how he's going to do against this curve. 2-drop into 3-drop into 4-drop.
This does not look great for Joel Larsson. And
No,
he's got a 3-3.
Just a hill giant.
Yeah, it's just a Mardu Warshrieker that's not really shrieking a whole lot here. Though it does represent a decent blocker here. Oh, no, it doesn't. Feat of Resistance.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
There's an Enoch Bondkin already on the battlefield.
Oh, no.
Whatever he gives it to is going to get trample, first strike, and reach when he does as well. Goodness sakes.
All the Outlast shenanigans.
Yes.
3 different abilities if you got a +1/+1 counter. Feat of Resistance grants just that. This is pretty much the way the designers drew it up.
Yes. Yeah, there is a magic R&D person pumping their fist at home somewhere.
And Yo probably knows what's up. I mean, he's attacking a 2/1 Bondkin into a 3/3. There's clearly a Feat of Resistance coming. But, I mean, Yo can't not block. It's too much damage.
Just too much damage.
I think he has to call him and hope it's a bluff.
Yep. And
Not a
there
bluff.
it is. So now that thing has first strike and trample and all the rest of it. In the meantime, he takes 5 damage. That's going to drop Yoel down to 15 here. And that was the whole turn, though, for Novaphone. So
That's it? Just kill your guy and deal 5?
I mean, it was amazing, but, you know, like...
He didn't do anything
end
with it.
hostility? Like, you know, we are, by the way, in the end hostilities part of the conversation here.
True.
From Yoel Larsson. I mean, he's going to need something massive. He's either need that or 3 removal spells in a row. And he has the first one with Aerostorm to take down the Bonkin. Okay, so stage 1 complete. He does have 11 life to work with here. Make that 6 after this turn.
Yeah, this is a Mardu tokens raid deck. You know, Butcher, a couple of Ponybacks, Mardu Horde Chiefs, plural, a Rush, a Seeker. I mean, Yoel Larsson doesn't have the ability to sweep the board.
Okay, well, that should do it then. Interestingly, Novaphone decides to play Alpine Grizzly. All right, well, why don't we jump back to our main match, Lova Yance versus Lars Dam. We're watching Thailand versus Sweden here at the World Magic Cup. This is Cons of Tark here, team sealed. The teams have opened 12 booster packs and made some really nice decks out of them. And there's a Disowned Ancestor to shore up the ground game for Lova. Now, Lars Dam, who is also our Magic Online champion, which is no small feat. You know, that one doesn't carry the same weight that a Pro Tour does, but it is very difficult to become the Magic Online champion. And a lot of people that have done it have gone on to great careers, you know, Reed Duke kind of being the headliner. All right, double trouble there for Lova. Oh! Little Kintry invocation here. How about a 4/4? Now, this is one way that you can combat the strategy that Lars Dam is playing. These 2-powered flyers, they can chip away and get in for damage, but the 4/4 on the ground can actually just race it. So now it puts it back onto Lars Dam to come up with something here.
Olle Rade has finally succumbed, by the way.
Okay, so Ole's down a game.
Ooh, Larsson has found Sarkon. I don't know if that's a removal spell, but yeah, he's fighting. Okay, but Thailand wins. Yoel Larsson does lose, so they're headed to game 3 now, is that right?
Yes, they're going to game 3. Yoel Larsson won the first game out of that. We've got a game 3 that we're watching right here. And on table C, Patana Chalamtanasak is up a game over Olle Rade. So things kind of swiftly moving forward here as Lars continues to try to fight the race here with his 2-powered flyer versus a 4/4 ground creature, which has been joined by a morph, but it looks like a missed land drop there for Lova. Okay, Lars Dam says, I can do that too. Summit Prowler as a 4/3 Yeti can either trade for the 4/4 token or maybe even start crashing through.
He'll hold off the morph probably too.
Right. So nice one there for Lars. That could be the break he needs. He knows that if he keeps chipping away in the air.
Well, the Kintry token is attacking into Summon Prowler. It seems like Lars has to just block and cross his fingers, right?
That does feel like the case, yes.
I mean, cross your fingers. Oh, it's just a trade. Lars is very happy there was no, you know, Feat of Resistance or Awaken the Bear come flying off the top rope from Lova.
Absolutely. So this means that Lars could be back in position to race effectively, but it kind of depends. It's another morph for Lova, who does hit his 4th land drop. And I think that was a Thornwood falls off the top for Lars, which is a little awkward because I believe, let's take a look at his hand real quick. Yeah, he's got that Dragon-style Twins in hand. This would have been a pretty nice turn to cast that card.
Wow.
And
yeah,
he's not
he would
going
have
to be able
loved.
to.
Comes into play untapped land would have made Lars's hand awesome.
He's also got Icy Blast in hand.
Yeah, with that many expensive cards in your hand, do you just Icy Blast here? Just tap the morphs for a couple of turns?
It's only for 1 turn. He doesn't have Ferocious.
Oh, he doesn't have Ferocious, of course.
I don't think that's an option.
Yeah, you're probably right. Swedish team chatting it up a lot in the feature match area. I'm not convinced the Thai team all speak the same language. I mean, I was watching them build a little bit. Lars was speaking exclusively in English. The other players were not.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no,
That's an interesting dynamic.
I mean, Lars is living in Thailand. He's clearly able to get around in the country, but...
Gosh, so Lars's turn is nothing. He just has no play this turn. It's got to feel miserable to have all those amazing spells in hand and just not be able to do anything. Has the 5th land come down for Lova? No, it hasn't. So it's only going to be 4 damage into Lars here, and he's got to breathe a sigh of relief there, because if Lova goes like land, turn up my Obzon guide or something, then things can get out of hand pretty quickly from Lars's perspective. That wasn't the case here, though. It looks like it's Bitter Revelation, which is also not bad for Lars if he wants to try to race, which he certainly does.
He's basically doing that instead of playing a Battle Priest.
He really wants to hit this land.
Yeah.
And he did hit the land as well.
Found a Siege Rhino.
He found Siege Rhino.
Yep.
Well, that has a big effect on race situations. Okay, and this Wind Scout has done what it's done every single turn in this game, chip away at Lova Janss's life total. So what's the play here for Lars? Is it just slam Dragon Style Twins and ship it back? He can also leave up multiple spells.
No, you want Dragon Scale Twins down.
You know, I think he might
Double
be able
strike,
to go for the
prowess.
win next turn. Like if
It
Lova
triggers all your ferocious stuff.
Yeah, I think if Lova leaves a door open, we could see like an Icy Blast Force Away turn with Dragon Style Twins.
Oh, dead drop.
No!
Bitter Revelation into Dead Drop to wipe away the Dragon Style Twins and the Wind Scout?
And Lars Dam's hopes and dreams, potentially? That
Pretty
was
much.
brutal.
That was a spectacular Dead Drop.
Wow. Is that a good Magic card? Wow. Look, the picture even has the Dragon Style Twins being thrown into the pit, it looks like. Oh, my goodness. All right, so what's the recovery plan here for Lars? You see the other Swedish players. Riverwheel Aerialist, not too bad. Things could get a little sketchy. Remember,
both those
Lars
morphs are gigantic.
Lars has already seen a Woolly Loxodon from his opponent, and look, there is one on the battlefield here too. So if you're in Lova's seat, Randy, are you looking to close this thing out? I mean, Lars is at 9. It's not like, it doesn't feel like you're in danger of dying anytime soon if you're Lova, at least not next turn.
Yeah, the question is whether you're attacking with just the Loxodon or whether you're attacking with both morphs.
And just making him guess?
Well, with Debilitating Injury in hand, I think you would attack with both. Because even if Lars guesses correctly and blocks the Obzon guide, I guess you know you can't flip and injury. So he's only going to attack with the Loxodon.
Yeah, you would have to just let it die and just take your lumps, but he's not going to. And Lars says, sure.
Yeah, at 4/5, when one of the two morphs is attacking into your 4/5, blocking is probably not a great idea. Speaking of 4/5s,
Rhino. Bang! Lars drops down to 4 here with Lova back up to 15. And there's the insurance plan debilitating injury for Lova. I like that. Not a lot of players would have made that play. But this just seals out the any way for Lars to really get in any big attacks. I really like that debilitating injury. That is sweet.
Yeah, Lova Janssen can play. We talked about he's played 6 Pro Tours. Most of them were most of a decade ago. Top 8'd world, well, 5 years ago anyway. Top 8'd Worlds in 2010. Only 6 Pro Tours worth of experience, but a top 8 and a lot of respect. The Worlds was one of his first big tournaments. He's played 13 Grand Prix. He's not a guy who is focused on playing a lot of Magic at any point in his career, but when he plays, he puts up results. Including at the WMCQ that got him here.
That's right. Lars, you got to feel for him. He's got a handful of fantastic spells here, and it feels like he is so far behind.
Yep.
I see a small smile from Lova there.
Yeah, the other thing that debilitating injury does is turn off ferocious.
So fair to say here, Randy, though, that the who's the beatdown question is firmly shifted over to Lova, and now Lars has to come up with a game plan to keep himself alive and maybe just figure out how to win later. Like, he's got ways to not die, right? Force away Icy Blast, even an Aerostorm if he wants to kill something here.
Going to attack and trigger raid? I guess that means this Aerostorm can now take out the Siege Rhino?
Nope.
No, he's just going to ship the turn. So he's setting up an Icy Blast, I guess?
Yeah, but Lova played around it. I mean, he debilitating injured his 4-power creature and doesn't have it now.
Is there a second instant? If he forces aways and Icy Blasts, then the 2 prowess triggers will get the Aerialist up to 4 power for the Icy Blast.
Right, so if he does it in the right order.
Which
should be force away first.
That looks like Lars's line.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to force away, and it's just an Ancestor, because he wants the others to stay tapped for 2 turns. All right, prowess trigger on the stack.
Prowess trigger resolves, he says, which he needs to make sure happens.
Yep.
Tap down those 3 things, prowess trigger resolves. Like you said, Randy, it creeps that thing all the way back up to 4, and the Icy Blast is going to lock down the best threats and incidentally bounce a disowned Ancestor here. And since that was on the bottom of the stack, he's going to get a loot out of the deal too. So nice play there from Lars Dam, though he's still significantly behind. He's at least given himself a chance here to claw his way back in. Lova is down to 13, so not particularly close to being dead. But I see that Lars also has Ice Feather Raven in hand, which he can play face down and then
Not to mention Treasure Cruise, by the way.
And Cruise, which seems to be the plan.
That's all another reason getting the loot is pretty nice there.
For sure. You see this sometimes with these Treasure Cruise decks. Well, they'll just trade and stay alive, and the late game plan is resolve Treasure Cruise. Not sure if that's my favorite late game plan, but it does do a lot.
Ancestor comes back, and a Sultai Scavenger joins it.
Ooh.
So Lova's still ahead on board, even though his guys aren't going to untap next turn.
Okay, there's a Hordling Outburst for Lars Dam, which could keep some of those morphs at bay. Unfortunately for him, the Siege Rhino.
Yeah, he's also out of instance,
trample.
which means that Aerialist cannot effectively block Sultai Scavenger. If he had an instant, it could, right? The prowess trigger could get it to 3/4.
Correct.
But the injury means it's a 2/3.
Man, that injury has done work. It's forced
Really
Lars to use his force away when he didn't really want to. He only has enough mana for the Ice Feather Aven. Face down and flip it up. Can't do much else.
I mean, he can, in theory, take 1 Scavenger hit. Right? He could cruise.
Truth.
I think you start by Treasure Cruising.
You want to see what your...
I want 3 more cards. I don't need to flip Ice Feather Aven this turn.
No, and you can still cast it.
Right.
Yeah, you can play Treasure Cruise for 2 mana on this board state.
I think that's how I would start, and then.
And he has not played a land yet either, so he could easily recoup one of those mana just by playing it this way. I think I like what you're saying, Randy.
Plus, the prowess trigger means Aerialist can attack through Scavenger.
Truth. Okay, so exile all of those, trigger this, and they're just double checking what they know about his list here.
Like I said, 2 lands and a War Name Aspirant. Not the most exciting draws.
Pretty lame, but at least he did get one of the lands back so he can continue.
And one of the lands was a gain land.
Could be relevant.
Like plus 25% to your life total. Yeah, I mean, you do get the War Name at 3/2, right? Oh, yeah, he can attack.
If you want to attack, yep.
He can attack with air. Well, it's not going to be blocking this turn. You may as well attack with it.
Correct.
Then you can play a 3/2 Aerialist, play the untapped land, and then either the Aven or a Hordling Outburst, which I'm guessing will be a face-down Aven because he would have played Hordling Outburst pre-combat and gotten another prowess trigger out of it. I don't know what he's going to do next turn when those guys untap, because there's only... How much power of tapped creatures does Lova have?
Well, he's got 6, 10...
Just 14 power.
Yeah. All right, War Name Aspirant gets the trigger, and here comes the Ice Feather Aven.
All right. Yeah, I like the way Lars played that turn.
It was a heck of a good turn.
I don't know if it's enough, but he played it well.
Now remember, those 3 creatures are going to stay tapped because of Icy Blast. Lars Dam sitting at 4 life. Lova down to 10. And it looks like a morph incoming here.
Because you need 2 Willy Loxodons, right? And a Battle Priest.
And an Abzan Battle Priest. You need all of these things.
Now what? He cannot play both the Aerostorm and flip the Ice Feather Aven because his land comes into play tapped. I think he drew he drew Arc Lightning. What does that do? Basically kills any one creature.
He's got Whirling Outburst to help buy him some time on the ground as well.
Yeah, he's got to worry about
This just feels like
trample.
all stall tactics, right? Like none of this actually solves his problem.
He's the one with fly. I mean, he's been attacking in the air with Aerialist. So stalling isn't awful, right? And if Aerostone's going to go to the face, like he can attack for. He could deal as much.
So you don't want to get a second. That's true.
Wow, it's actually, if he had a mana, he could almost flip Ice Feather Aven to bounce the one flyer, attack in the air with the flyers, and Aerostorm his face. If that land came into play untapped, he could actually deal 10 this turn.
Oh my, you're right.
But the land came into play tapped. It's a Swiftwater Cliff, so it doesn't work. But so now what? Well, he's got the Arc Lightning. He can Arc Lightning and Ice Feather Aven, but that's not good enough, right?
No.
That is...
No, it's not.
3, 4, 5. That's 8 damage.
Yeah, so it looks like the Whirling Outburst is going to have to be part of the plan, because I think that gives him the best chance of surviving on the ground, right?
Right. Trample is his problem.
Trample's a major issue. Oh, he was so close there.
Yeah.
All right, so what is he going to kill here? He can only kill one creature, and it's going to be the flyer. He gets a trigger. And here comes the outburst. Trigger, trigger. So it's back up to 4 power.
I think he survives, doesn't
Is it going to attack this turn, though? The problem is a Siege Rhino, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you can block it with Aspirant. You can soak
also
up
just
a couple.
take the Siege Rhino.
Right, he's at 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, attack with Aerialist.
Block,
this is the
block,
plan.
block, block. Take the Siege Rhino. Yeah.
There's what? There's 4 potential attackers, and he's got...
There's 4 other. Yeah, there's Siege Rhino plus 4 attackers.
Right. He can block everybody but Siege Rhino and keep the Ice Feather Raven alive.
Wow. Is Lars Dam going to pull this out?
This has been really well played. What did Lova draw?
It was a spell. I could not see what it was. He just did a quick look at it.
The problem with this whole trample
It was a
problem...
Rakshasa Death Dealer.
Yeah, I mean, flipping over morphs can mess things up here.
Yeah, so there is an Obzon guide on the
Right,
battlefield,
right.
and that could be what Lova is going to concentrate on here and just say, look, we need to get up to 10 here. You see Lars showing his teammate Aerostorm.
Yeah.
This could have been a little bit of showmanship as well.
I think so. It's obviously not relevant to this board, but he's trying to convince Lova that it is. It's not quite. He's almost representing like a Become Amends. He doesn't have enough Del for that. But yeah, the flip of the Obzon guide is what's going to win this game, isn't it?
It looks like it.
Lars has played it spectacularly.
Now, actually, is that even true, though? Because that puts him back up to 10. And doesn't he still have the same play that we talked about before? Where he can flip up the Ice Feather Aven to bounce the potentially flying blocker? Also, does Lova have the luxury here of turning up his Obzon guide and replaying his Sultai Scavenger? Because that's another option. This is incredible. I think he can actually still beat him. He gains 4, goes to 10. Lars survives with his Ice Feather Aven intact. Flips it, hits for 4. Oh, that's 9. Oh, that's 9. He would need a non-creature spell to trigger his Aerialist. Wow. Yeah, I think if Lova flips up his Obzon guide, Lars is going to need to find. I don't think he can do it. I don't think there's a 1-drop in his deck that's going to trigger the Aerialist.
All right. Well, Lova sends everybody, which seems completely correct. Lars is going to take. Oh, he's trying to decide whether to put that Ice Feather Aven in front of Siege Rhino. From Lars's seat, he's looking at Aerialist plus Aerostorm.
Which is not enough.
Well, he doesn't know about the Obzon guide left yet. It is enough from Lars's perspective.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Aerialist
yes, of course.
plus, he doesn't need this Ice Feather Aven, right? The Ice Feather Aven is insurance. So, I mean, Lars is trying to figure out which is the better way to use the Ice Feather Aven. Hold it back to bounce some surprise blocker, or soak up 2 points of trample from Siege Rhino such that he only goes down.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's a surprise.
I mean, Ice Feather Aven
Yeah.
Ice Feather Aven can also attack for 2 next turn
That's
if
right.
it's alive.
Which could be very important, though it's unlikely to be. I mean, it feels like Lars is not in a position to play around anything here.
Yeah, how much difference is there between 1 life and 3 life?
I don't
what's
think
he,
much.
Dragon Scale Boon?
Yeah, I think if he has that, you just say, yeah, that's a good card. You got me.
Yeah, so he does not block the Siege Rhino. He's willing to go down to 1. Now here's Obzon Guide, which, I mean, by keeping the Ice Feather Raven alive, Lars has played around that as well as he possibly can.
He
bought himself his turn.
He did.
He goes down to 1.
With what his plan is, he can get Lovit down to 1.
Why isn't it 10? Oh, he has to trigger the...
Yeah, and he
it's
can't...
2 + 2 + 5 right now.
Yes, he can't trigger it and get raid.
Right.
He needs both to happen. He either
he draws a mountain.
He either needs, like, if he plays it
yeah.
first, it's not enough, and if he plays it second, it's not enough. That is so ridiculous.
1 point short.
1 point. Lars Dam, who
2 turns in a row, he was... Well, last turn he was 1 mana short.
Yes.
This turn he's 1 point short.
And he even had the land.
Last turn, right. And now it's an untapped land off the top, just to mock him.
Although it is interesting to note that he wouldn't actually be alive if that wasn't that tap land here, right?
Well, if it had been an untapped land, he wouldn't have needed.
He would have won anyway.
He would have just won.
It's true. This has just been
So
one of the
close.
closest games.
Lars just scoops
and
him
Lars
up.
has to scoop him up. And
Wow.
I wonder if Lovin knows how close that really was. He was almost
probably
dead
not.
there. All right, so that means that Lova Janse wins the match 2-1. Let's take a look at Table C, where Olle Rade has won his match.
Okay.
And we're going to jump actually to Table B, which is
Olle
Joel
has
Larsson.
forced a Game 3, and this is Game 3?
And this is Game 3 between Joel Larsson and Navafone Kasum Sumthorn. So
Sweden's up a match, and the other 2 are in Game 3.
Correct.
Sounds like Olle used 2 different X spells to get Game 2. An Icy Blast and a Mind Swipe.
That's pretty good. Mind Swipe is so nasty if you're ahead. You just sit on it forever.
Now here's the Swedish captain, Joel Larsson. Does not have 7 Pro Tour top 8s. Not sure what's going on with the stats. Oh, that's the team total. Oh, awesome. The team does have 7 top 8s, which is a really impressive number.
Joel has 1, 2?
Yeah, I think it's Ole's got 5, and the other guys both have 1. 63 Pro Tours.
I know Joel has 1, but...
Yeah, you know which team has the most Pro Tours played?
Who? Which team?
It's the Dutch team. It's Frank Karsten and 3 guys. But Karsten has
So it's Frank Karsten?
Frank Karsten has almost all of them, yeah. Second place is, I believe, Nikolai Herzog and his three friends.
Oh, that's funny. All right, so this board is developing a little slower than what we saw before. See that there's an Alpine Grizzly and a Morph.
Here's the best Frank Karsten stat. Paul Jordan was putting this on Twitter. Frank Karsten has more Pro Tours played than any other team in the World Magic Cup. Like
he's played in more PTs than
he has single-handedly
another
plays
team.
more teams than every single team except for the Netherlands, which he's on. Every non-Frank team. He's more Pro Tours played than every non-Frank team in the field.
Wow. All right. That is kind of shocking.
The Swedes are one of the closest with all of Ulle's.
It looks like the pace of play has slowed a little bit here. Not quite as much going on. And there's a Jeskai student after the attack from the Grizzly. And I think the Grizzly's going to bite it here thanks to a Bring Low, and down it goes. Joel Larsson deciding to trade a little bit of, actually a decent chunk of life total there for more information. Took 4 damage from the Grizzly, then killed it post-combat after the follow-up play from Navafone was just a Jeskai student. He wanted to make sure there wasn't something a little juicier to kill there. And he was willing to trade some of his life total to do it. Joel played his land for the turn and just immediately shipped the turn back. It looks like Rashad's going to figure out exactly what that morph is. But it's okay, so it's a Ponyback Brigade, and it's very likely to turn up here regardless. When your opponent has a morph, 5 lands, and just passes the turn back, it's generally you should assume that a morph is going to be turned face up. And pony back decent here. The Jeskai student's going to do a noble job of holding back the tokens. Unless, of course, there's more in hand for Larsson here. Yeah, there's the Raider spoils. Ooh.
Yeah, Raider spoils. I mean, those are goblins from the Pony Back Brigade, not
Correct.
warriors, so you don't get to draw the cards, but making them 2/1s is still pretty nice.
And he's found a Tormenting Voice. So he's going to fire that off, discarding a Swamp. He's going to find a Mardu... Or it was either a Dragon-Style Twins or a War Shrieker. I couldn't quite tell which one. Oh, it was Dragon-Style Twins. All right. And there is a Raider Spoils. I've actually never seen Dragon-Style Twins plus Raider Spoils.
That's nice.
4 power double strikers, not bad.
Everything you can do to pump up the Dragon Style Twins helps a ton.
A ton. Yeah, it just limits the double block options severely. And Navaphone has to try to figure out how he's going to get through. He's playing for Team Thailand here versus Sweden. This is the second round.
It's interesting how much power Sweden has put in this middle seat. I mean, most teams, I think the default is that most teams put their captain in the middle seat just because for communication purposes, it's easier for that guy to, look left, look right, and be able to give advice on all 3 matches. But that means that you're going to tend to have the better players in the middle seat, right? So the way Sweden has approached that is Joel Larsson's deck is loaded. Butcher of the Horde, Dragon-Style Twins, Sarkon, the Dragon Speaker.
Wow.
Yeah, they said, let's build a super awesome, insanely good deck and put it in the middle seat. I mean, that's a lot of power, right? You could have divided that power up into the other decks. But, I mean, it makes sense. 2 pony backs. He's got a Hordling Outburst. This deck, couple of War Shriekers.
Wow,
Seeker of the Way, Suspension Field, 2 Horde Chiefs. This deck's just great.
That sounds absurd. It's always nice when your rares line up as well. He's got 3 red and 3 red on 2 different rares that he absolutely wants to play. Makes it that much easier. And just as we mentioned, his Suspension Field comes down and takes down the Dragon-Style Twins. So, Navaphone keeping things at an even keel, but barely. He's, Joel Larsson has built up a reasonable little board state here. No, he's just going to jam in there with the old Pony Back Brigade. Raid Trigger incoming, Randy. Is that the read?
Possibly. There's also some chance Joel is just testing Navaphone to make sure Navaphone remembers that it's 3 power with the Raider spoils. But yeah, Raid Trigger. I mean, it's a pretty free attack, right? There's no block that kills it. You could do that even without having a Raid card.
But in this case, he does. And he's going to get 2 potentially critical warriors on the battlefield here. Raider Spoils works particularly well with warriors, though. As it stands, it's doing quite good work here, as it's adding effectively 6 power to the battlefield for Larsson, and it's spread out over a bunch of creatures, meaning that if Navaphone were to lose one of his blockers, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. He's got a morph, though, to follow up. Kind of barely hanging on here, though. A dead drop in hand for Navaphone.
Yeah, this is not
look
the matchup.
optimized here.
Yeah.
You just take it out?
I mean, it's so good, you probably don't take it out.
Probably don't take it out, huh?
But this is definitely not the good matchup for dead drop.
Right. All right. So here it is. An Aerostorm is falling down upon this poor morph, which was a War Behemoth. Down it goes. And what's the follow-up? Suspension Field. And he's gonna take out the Jeskai student Navaphone, not the. That was a hopeful. It was a hopeful one there, but the student is gonna get out of here. And there it goes, and it looks like Larsson is going to be able to finish this game very quickly as he jams with the whole team. 2 of those creatures are warriors, so one of those is going to get blocked. He's going to get a card draw out of this as well, and he's going to hit for 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's going to hit for 11. That's half of Navaphone's life total, and he's even going to get to draw a card. No,
Nope,
not quite.
Kill shot.
So
no, draw, no card draw for you.
And three damage less. So he's going to hit for 8.
Still, this board is in great shape. Sweden looking to close this out 2-0.
Yeah, there's not a lot here that Navaphone can do from this stage.
It actually sounds like it's a race between Yol and Olle. Olle Rade is also winning in his game 3. Who will get the clinching blow? Things sounding great for Sweden, though. Olle apparently threatening to win even before Joel can.
That's right. Sweden's up a match right now. And if Joel Larsson or Olle Rade win their match, they're both playing in their game 3 right now, then Sweden will win the match. And Navaphone has a lot of work to do, starting off with an Alpine Grizzly. And I'm hearing that we've got a handshake on the Olle Rade match.
Barrage of boulders.
Table C.
No blocking for you, just handshaking.
Just handshaking. And it looks like Sweden has sealed the deal, though I do see that Joel is still in battle mode here.
He's in still had all these mode.
Oh, he's just showing off a little here. He's drawn his Sarkon.
Yeah, they don't need to finish this match. It doesn't really affect anything. You'll see that sometimes the players just kind of want to play Magic because you know what, playing Magic is fun. So they'll finish out the match just cause.
Although I did see you see Joel look to his left like, hey, did you win?
Oh, great, awesome. But I had this anyway. I don't know if they're going to finish or not. But Sweden wins either way.
Whether they do either way, we might see an exciting conclusion here. But Sweden wins. They've won their first 2 matches here, and they are going to improve to 2-0 as a team.
I was impressed by the way the Thai team played.
Yeah, and they're
Lars
still
in
1-1. Yeah, Lars played really well, and they're still 1-1 here. With a team a win over a very tough Japanese team. But in the meantime, Larsson is in full battle mode. And like you said, I mean, gamer's going to game, right? They want to play Magic.
Absolutely.
Especially Larsson, because he's got Sarkon flying through the air for 5 here. And there it is. So Sweden manages to sweep the matches, though. The first 2 are the important ones, of course. And they're 2-0. And that's not really a big shock here, as you mentioned earlier, Randy, that this is one of the more stacked teams in the field.
Totally agree. I definitely had them as one of the favorites coming in.
But like you said, a solid showing. Welcome back to the booth. There's Randy Buehler. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. And we're in the early stages here of the first day of action of the World Magic Cup. This was Khans of Tarkir sealed. We've got another match to go. But before that, let's send it back to the news desk and Richard Hagan.
All right, thank you very much to Marshall Sutcliffe and Randy Buehler down there. A sweep for Sweden. And they will look to not finish 33rd this year as they did last year. They will look to make it into the top 32. I want to thank Mareback MTG on Twitter, who said, look, a little late to this, but can you just go through it for me? 4 players a team, there's a captain, three decks sealed, what's going on? So Mareback, let's give you the very, very quick summary for you. Yes, 4 players on every team from 72 countries. There's a captain plus 3 teammates. The captain was determined by the last pro season. Whichever player in your nation had the highest number of pro points in the season was the captain. And then the other 3 slots, well, they went to WMCQ winners, the World Magic Cup qualifier winners. So that was slot 2, 3, and 4. So that's how the teams got together. Now, what does the captain do? Well, a lot of the time they're playing, sometimes they're coaching, because in each of the formats that we have, and there are up to 4 segments to this tournament, if you like, over the next 2 days, we start with 3 rounds of team sealed. 3 players play, the 4th watches, helps the other teammates with their choices through the games, or goes and gets them water if they need, massages the shoulders, tells them to calm down, it's okay, you're only 1-0 down. There's all sorts of roles that 4th player can play. Whoever isn't playing in Team Sealed this morning must play this afternoon in Team Unified Standard, where the players will have to play 3 standard legal decks that together would be standard legal. So only 4 Siege Rhino across 3 decks, only 4 End Hostilities or Pearl Lake Agents. Any card in standard other than basic land, there are only 4 copies per team available. At the end of day 1, the top 32 teams will come back tomorrow, and then we go into pool play. Pools of 4 teams, the top 2 advance over 3 rounds. Do it again, top 16. The top 2 teams advance through 3 rounds. We all come back on Sunday, and seeding matters. It's a massive, massive deal. All right, so thanks to Mirbach. Keep all those tweets coming. We love to hear from you wherever you are around the world. So, welcome back to the news desk. Rich Hagan here with you, sitting alongside the Pro Tour historian, Mr. Brian David Marshall, and the Pro Tour Hall of Famer, Ben Stark. Ben, Twitter loves you, it turns out. No surprise there. The stuff you did with that limited was just extraordinary.
I just want to take 1 second and talk for a minute about the team captain.
All right.
Because there's the actual team captain, and then there's the team captain each leg. You mentioned one person sitting out.
Right.
So you'll see teams that are splitting up their advice duty. So let's just say I'm playing in the middle seat, then I might be, or Ben was in the middle seat, he might be advising me here, and then the person who's not playing would be helping the player on the wing.
Right.
So it's very interesting. Like, you talk to the Slovak team, they have even Flock sitting out for this leg, and then Mete Zadelkai is going to sit out for the 3 rounds of standard, so they can divide their experience among the 2 less experienced players on the team.
Josh Hutter-Layton did that last year. He chose to sit out one of the legs so he could kind of help everyone.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to bring you a full results service as the results come in. I'm going to give you this result that Luxembourg moved to 1-1 over Hungary, who a lot of people thought would do very well. They will have to dig themselves out of a 0-2 team sealed hole. BDM, tell us about Luxembourg.
Well, I know that someone who's very excited about Luxembourg's success is named Sandra, and she's not on the team.
Okay.
But she is Stephen Hotto's girlfriend. And so years ago, Stephen Hotto and his girlfriend made a deal. She would not complain about how much Magic he wanted to play. She would not complain about him being on Magic Online late at night, going and taking weekends off to go to Grand Prix, under one condition. Any money he wins playing Magic, he has to spend half of it on jewelry for her.
I want this deal.
That's the deal.
Right.
So he's like, my girlfriend never complains about me playing Magic, and if I do well, she gets jewelry. She is at what would be the equivalent of a Tupperware party for jewelry with her girlfriends right now.
Okay.
And she has called, not Steven, but Steven's teammates.
Right.
Say, listen, nothing less than day 2 is acceptable.
Wow.
Because he made day 2 last year. They finished 30th place, I think.
Right, yes, they did, which was their best.
Won probably $1,000 or something like that each. I don't remember what the prize. And so, that was some jewelry. So she's looked at the catalog.
Yeah.
And she has decided that minimum day 2 finish is what she needs for what she's chosen from the catalog. And teammates are like, I don't know why Steven's not more scared. I'm very scared.
Sounds like she runs a tight ship.
They're playing scared there. All right, so that's
virtual captain.
That's Luxembourg with bonus captain away from the field. Let's move on to Australia, and they lost their first round. Looks like they've drawn round 2 against Singapore. Singapore have now drawn twice at this tournament. Extraordinary. So BDM, there's the 4 J's, double Justin and double James.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Chung is someone who's had a tremendous amount of success in the Grand Prix circuit in and around Australia. It's a pretty safe bet. It's like probably a little better than 50-50 that if there's a Grand Prix in Australia, Justin will top 8 it.
And he was in that team that was second at Memphis in 2008.
Absolutely.
The last time, Ben, I think it's the last time, that the USA actually won the tournament with Michael Jacob, Paul Cheon, and of course Sam Black.
And that's a long time ago now.
It's a while, 2008. I mean, you were only like in your teens.
I wish.
2008. Right, okay. Let's look to Belgium. Ben, tell us about Belgium. You had a chance to watch them build earlier this morning.
Well, I saw a really excellent Jeskai. They had Sage of the Inward Eye, Crater's Claws, and Mantis Rider. So that's, 3 excellent rares for that deck. They had the Black-White Warriors deck that I love so much. They had Chief of the Scale and 2 Raider Spoils, and of course, Sorin. Let's not leave that out. But their third deck was kind of weak. I wasn't sure at the point that I walked by them whether they were going to play Obzon or Sultai. But it looked like it was very unclear which they would play because neither deck was going to be great.
Why not both?
Yeah, they definitely could have played 4-color, just like we just built over there.
Right.
I would not be surprised to see that.
Okay, next up is Canada. They've advanced to 1-1. They lost their first match, but just coming in, I can tell you that they have won their second match. They're at 1-1, and they're one of those teams with a real sort of 1-2 punch. Obviously, you've got Pro Tour winners in both Sean McLaren and Alexander Hayne. But chatting with Hayne last weekend at Strasbourg, he was very high on the skills of both Daniel and David. And Ben, I want to ask you, just how many players on a team of 4 is the point at which you start getting excited that if you were a team captain, like how many people do you want with you, really?
I think 3 is probably the number. I mean, if you have one player who's not that experienced, it's not that hard between the other 2 or 3 of you to coach him and help him. But if you have 2 that aren't that experienced, that means both other players have to be focused on another match at all times. And sometimes you have a hard, complicated match yourself, and you can't really be bouncing in and out of your match to help somebody else. So I think if you've got 3 solid players, I think you're in good shape.
Okay, next up is Chinese Taipei. Why don't we take a little look at them? And of course, they are headlined. This is another with a great 1 and 2. Su Qingguo and Huang Haoshan. Huang with 5 Grand Prix top 8. Su Qingguo in double figures for Grand Prix top 8s. And of course, he was the team captain in the inaugural World Magic Cup in 2012 in Indianapolis. 2 Americans at the desk. Better ask you then. So, how was the bonfire moment for you? Ben, fun?
It was so painful to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of Miracle, and I saw Kibler's face, and I knew exactly what he was feeling. You know, having played in Pro Tour Avison Restored, I played the deck, the Green-White Humans deck that we played, and a lot of our opponents were on Naya, and every single round I was just like, please don't have drawn a bonfire, please don't have drawn a bonfire, you know, in the mid to late game. And when he drew that bonfire and Kibler just had that reaction, you know, it was something that we could all relate to, something sitting at home that we had all felt so many times.
Sure, and that's one of the great things about having Nate and Sean here, the guys from Walking the Plains. They get to capture those moments that others can't because they go into the corners of the room in those dying minutes, and BDM, they just capture the human drama so well.
So if you, there's a lot of GIFs of that moment that are out there, and if you watch it, because I was like, oh, there's a big crowd around the USA match, let me go see how they're doing, and I kind of poke my head in, and you see me kind of like come in, look, and I see the bonfire, and I just like, oh.
Yeah. All right.
And I just disappear.
It was physically painful.
It was.
So that's Chinese Taipei. That, on moments like that, entire tournaments can hinge. The 2012 Magic World Cup champions.
By the way, Chinese Taipei looking to become the first team to, France also looking to do that, become the first team to repeat since we've christened the World Team Championship the World Magic Cup.
Absolutely. You could have a double individual champion in Yuya Watanabe or Shahar Shenha. You could have a double team champion, indeed, in France or Chinese Taipei. Let's move on to Hungary. And BDM, we're going to talk a little bit about Strasbourg last weekend here.
Yeah, I mean, again, we keep saying last weekend, but that we haven't gotten to next weekend yet.
Right.
It's still Friday. Just a few days ago, Tomasz Nagy won Grand Prix Strasbourg. There you see team captain Tomasz Gliad, and this is a team that finished second last year at the World Magic Cup.
Yeah, now, unfortunately, though, I do have bad news for Hungary fans. I can tell you, 4th in 2012, second last year. The feeling was only the addition of Gabor Coxes could really have made this team any better. They've almost hand-picked their team, but they are rather shockingly at 0-2, and that is because Luxembourg beat them. So Hungary 0-2, deep in the hole. Someone else who is at 0-2, and this is a proper shocker, this is Japan.
Oh, wow.
0-2. Yuya Watanabe, Toshio Kanagawa is at 0-2 as well. Here you see, there's their team, Raman Arabima and Sho Kiyonaga. They're twice winners. If they're going to come back, they're running the Watanabe, the 0-2.
But you talked a little bit before about how many Pro Tour experienced players do you need on a team, and you were saying 3, Ben, is really ideal. 2, you're able to sort of split it up and have your whole team covered. Japan, this is Watanabe, who has been somewhat distracted. He's been pulled in 2 directions, right? His preparation for this event, he's got to prepare for the World Magic Cup, he's got to prepare for the World Championship, and now he's also got to be thinking ahead to playing on Sunday in the World Championship. He's in the top 4. So, there's a lot of distraction for him here, and he has to pick up all the slack. I mean, again, we may turn around and 5 years from now, one of these guys is the next big Japanese superstar, right? The next Yuya Watanabe. But as of the moment, right, they have to prove themselves, and they're going to be relying on Watanabe to help them get that experience and benefit from his time on the Pro Tour.
Ben, I want to ask you, Yuya Watanabe and Shahar Shenhar are our two remaining dream chasers. Two of the final four coming in on Sunday are in both these tournaments. How happy are or should Patrick Chapin and Kentaro Yamamoto, our other semi-finalists for the World Championship, be that Shahar and Yuya are going through the mill of the World Magic Cup on Friday and Saturday?
Oh, I'm sure they're very happy. I mean, it is very tough to play these long days. It's very mentally draining. It requires a lot of thinking, a lot of energy. People don't realize it, but when you play Magic all day at a high level in a tournament like this, you are drained at the end of the day. And for Shahar and Yuya to have to do that 2 days in a row if they make day two, no days off, and then show up for the top four of Worlds, it makes it a bigger accomplishment for them if they win, but it definitely puts Chapin and Yamamoto at a little bit of an advantage.
Right. And Shahar, like Yuya, is really the only very experienced player.
The true superstar.
He's the true superstar. He's the one, he is the tent pole of that team, and that's not just a reference to his height.
Yeah, and I think Shahar has a lot of that mental energy. I think he can really go and go and go. If it were me in that spot, I don't think I would play well on Sunday. But he's 21 years old. I think he can play Magic all day, every day.
But he's got to go maximum energy all the way through from Tuesday through Sunday.
Right. And even if he has the full maximum energy or close to it, he still can't be practicing for the top four of the World Championships while he's here playing in the Magic World Cup. So it's at least diverting his attention and preventing him from getting in as many playtesting games over these next few days as Chapin and Yamamoto will have the opportunity to do.
There's a reason we call them the Dream Chasers, because it would be an incredible achievement if they can do it.
Well, all the more impressive if they come through on Sunday.
So next up is the Netherlands, and this team is led by a Hall of Famer. It's Mr. Frank Karsten. You've seen him on the European coverage team. He's been gearing up, and the names there that are with him, a lot of you won't know. They're not super experienced, but Frank is very, very proud of his team. They have started off very nicely. They are 2-0. Right now, I don't like them very much. They're the UK killers. They beat Scotland in round one. I can tell you they've beaten Northern Ireland in round two. No danger of them beating England in round three, because it's Swiss pairings. We'll come back to that in a little bit. But nonetheless, Netherlands, a tremendous leader. And Ben, you've had the chance to work with Frank. Is there anyone within your sphere who works harder at the really little details of Magic?
Absolutely not. He's meticulous. He's very organized. He keeps track of all the little details. He's always running formulas. He's just understands gaming and stats in a way that none of the rest of us did on CFB. I mean, when he really came to that team, he brought something unique.
Yeah, I don't expect any other team to have as comprehensive approach to Team Unified Standard as Frank will.
Just crunching the numbers.
They are going to have three perfectly positioned and tuned decks.
In the way that we often talk at the start of a Pro Tour day, what constructed decks are you most wanting to go and look at? And it's a Conley Woods and it's a Sam Black and so on. Are you going to be first out of the door to see the Netherlands configuration?
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to really get a sense of what the optimal arrangement of three decks is, where the least overlap is in card pools, because again, three standard decks that need to be able to be stacked into a 225 card standard legal deck. You can't have more than 4 copies of any card other than basic lands across all 3 decks. So if there's any overlap at all, you have to start thinking about splitting cards. And so Frank is going to have figured out all the math and all the implications of that.
Okay, so we stay in Europe for our next team. Why don't we take a look at the Slovak Republic, Slovakia? Here they are. A 1-2 punch in even flock, of course, at back-to-back Pro Tour top 8s and a Pro Tour title in the last 6 months. Matej Zatlkaj, finalist from Pro Tour Berlin 2008 and the winner of Grand Prix Stockholm earlier this year. Jan Tomczany was 6th at Worlds in Toronto. That's all the way back in 2001. And Mikhail Gulden, well, they refer to him as the enforcer because he is light. This guy, if we ever get a chance to see him on camera, he is huge. He's a lovely, sweet guy, but he does not look like a lovely, sweet guy. And it's like, Are you sure you want to cast end hostilities on my teammate? He's great.
Every time I see him, I expect to see a door frame around him, a velvet rope, and I reach for my ID.
Right.
I mean, the guy looks like a bouncer.
Yeah.
He is the waterfront bouncer.
Oh, very good. Incidentally, they are up to 2-0, so they've done terrifically. Now, Ben, was it you who looked at the Slovak Republic list?
No, I did.
Oh, you
I did.
had, and
I
you were
did.
like, they had a lot of good stuff going on, but
So they had. There were some cards that they had to leave on the side. So Butcher the Horde is a very powerful card that you really want to play with.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that's one of the. When you look through your rares, you're like, okay, I want to play with this card. They didn't have the commons to support it, and they ended up going in, a weird direction on a couple of the decks, including one deck that was a delve deck that was gonna finish off with Empty the Pits, which is, not a card you usually face, right? Maybe you faced it, you said, I think, at the pre-release or pre-release week.
Right after the pre-release, we saved our packs and we were doing drafts, and one of my friends emptied the pits me. He made a lot of guys and actually completely killed me with it, and I wasn't expecting it at all. But, the card is kind of expensive.
Yeah, but, I watched Mete, tapping his mana, cast Bitter Revelation, very deliberately leaves 4 gain lands that all make black untapped.
Mm-hmm.
You see him and even working out what mana they're going to cast there, and and then he draws the Empty the Pits and passes the turn, and then you see him show the Empty the Pits at the end of the turn off 4 mana, and 18 spells in his yard.
Yeah.
It was kind of gross.
that's pretty awesome. All right, so the Slovak Republic off to a great start. They are the 2010 Team World Champions from Chiba.
Which was even Flock on that team.
Absolutely.
So he was a world team champion before he ever won a Pro Tour.
Yeah, I mean, there is this fantastic positioning for certain countries. The way things work is that just as there is an ideal sort of number of, obviously you want 4 players on a team, but there are ways for teams to interact well. Countries, it turns out, have a fundamental edge sometimes. And some of the best countries with the best chance and the best histories in team competition are where you have a community that's big enough to generate some excellent players, and where competition is fierce, but also small enough where the absolute top rises to the top the majority of the time. And when you look at nations like Hungary, okay, they're 0-2, but small sample size, but they have great history in the game. The Slovak Republic is another, and you look at Chinese Taipei would be another good example, where the best tend to rise to the top, and you see people with their 4th, their 5th, their 6th, their 7th appearance in team play over the years.
North Americans have long wanted to be able to put Team Florida, Team Tri-State Area, and Team Northern California.
Team Northern California.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, the U.S., we have a lot of Magic players.
And a lot of space to cover to get everyone together to play test.
I know one thing I've never done is be on the U.S. national team. It's something I've always wanted. I've fallen a little short a couple of times.
Yep. Why don't we move along from the Slovak Republic? We'll stay with the S's, as we're going to for a while, because there's a lot of them. Here is Spain. So we've got Javier Dominguez, the captain. Dani Luengos is the least experienced of the 4. GP top 8s for Antonio Del Moral Leon. Tony Remis Pascual is quietly one of the best standard players in the world at the GP heading towards PT level. Hasn't had a ton of success at PT level, but I expect their unified standard lists to be great BDM.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot about these players, but there's a Mox competitor in the mix here.
Yeah, so talking with Tony Ramis Pascual last night at registration, they came in and he said, "You do know about Antonio Del Moral Leon, don't you?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure." I'm looking at.
Obviously, I do.
Of course, I do. But he said, he's Charlie on Magic Online, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's ringing a bell, but I'm not quite sure why. He won the Mox 2 months ago. So this is, I thought Spain were excellent anyway, but I really think that adds to the resume, because when you want tight, relentless play over 15, 16 hours at a stretch, that's a really big deal. So congratulations to him, and I think Spain are looking decent there, but they are in trouble because round 1, they played Mexico and they lost. Round 2, they faced Colombia and they lost. So Colombia and Mexico are really sticking it to Spain
A little
right
colonial revenge.
now. Little something like that. Little local difficulty for Spain. Now we go back to Europe next, and let's talk about the team that finished 33rd last year. Missed out on day 2. They started out hideously in sealed, but came right back. This time, they are doing something about it, and this is Sweden. Larsson and Rade are back from last year. Love Jansa has a top 8 from Worlds in Chiba in 2010. And Poya Nabari, once you get to the 4th member of the team in terms of experience, any experience is a bonus. Nabari's played like over 20 Grand Prix, so really knows his way around Europe and around the format. So Sweden just look tremendous right now.
It's a serious team.
And Ben, you've had a chance. I would imagine, I mean, your career spans both Larsson and Rade. You played either of them at high level?
Larsson, really Rade was like right before my time the first time. He kind of retired around when I was getting on the Pro Tour. But Larsson, I played in the top 4 of Pro Tour Gate Crash, and we had a really skill-intensive matchup. I was playing Esper, he was playing Blue-White-Red, both control decks that go long. We had a tough 5-game match. He played great. I mean, really, I feel like if I could have played a little better in Game 5, I might have won. I think he did a better job than I did in that semifinals.
Okay, next up we have Switzerland, which in your preview article, BDM, I stuck my neck out and said, I think you're now looking at the winner there. The fact that their number 3 seed is Samuel Marty, who is a Grand Prix winner. The fact you have a team world champion from New York 2007 in Nico Boni, and one of the single most experienced players at high-level Magic in the entire building, Andreas Gans, plus Reda Somani. They just look terrific to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, having that World Team Championship experience for Nico, I think, is tremendous. And again, Worlds in New York in 2007. He was a huge part of that team's success, and so he knows how to do it, and really can not only give advice, but also maybe lend a little bit of confidence to his teammates. Not that they need it, because they've all been here before.
Right. So that's Switzerland. It's time now, gentlemen. You've been very patient. Let's do USA, shall we? Here we go. Wrap ourselves in the flag, as some people do. Owen Turtelwild, Andy Beckstrom, Neil Oliver, and Isaac Sears. So they've been first 8 times. We couldn't fit in all the years and all the cities that they lifted the trophy. They are, of course, the most successful team in the history of the game. So let's get your take on this. BDM, why don't we start with you? What's your take on Team USA this time around?
The take on Team USA is Owen Turtelwild. He is, by all accounts, I mean, he's the #1 ranked player in the game. He is, by all accounts, if you poll 10 people, probably half of them will say he's the best player in the game right now. If they don't say him, they'll name one of his teammates.
Sure.
And what's really interesting to me is, he's someone who's not going to pull his punches. If he was unhappy with his team, that's, not very well-known names, he'd be a little grumbly and grumpy, but he's genuinely enthusiastic about his teammates. And obviously, I mean, Neil Oliver, there's a lot to be enthusiastic about, but Isaac Sears and Andrew Beckstrom, don't have a tremendous amount of success. But you know what? These are guys who, and we talked about the disadvantages North America has in terms of geographic disparity, but there's an Open Series event every weekend. There's a Grand Prix event in North America seemingly every other weekend. There's PTQs all the time. There's, TCG player 50Ks. There's, all sorts of stuff. And these guys are playing in those events and doing well at those events. So, but again, they have something to prove. I would not. I mean, obviously Owen is a huge pillar on the team, but I think Beckstrom and Sears, there's a lot of potential there, but they need to deliver on that. But Neil, I know you're a big Neil Oliver fan.
Yeah, I mean, M14 was one of my favorite limited formats the past few years, and I watched that top 8 where Huey Jensen went on to beat Neil in the finals, but Neil played amazing in that top 8. Huey has a story about how before he played him in the semis or quarters, he had a match where he had to play around Celestial Flare, and he had to make huge sacrifice to do it, and then he played around the second Celestial Flare. How many people, after they pull the first of a card, then play around a second copy of that card? And then I watched him play against Huey in the finals, and his mana draws weren't great. He had to mulligan a 5-1 game, I believe, and he kept it tight. He didn't just slam his counter spells on the first spell, because that was a slow format, a format where it was really about saving your answers and things like that. And even though Huey won, Neil really gave himself the best chance he could. He played awesome in that finals.
Right. I've been in the finals of 3 GPs at this point.
Yeah, also he won the Modern Masters GP in Vegas, the biggest Grand Prix ever, biggest Magic tournament ever, I believe. I'm not 100%, I think so. And that was a very skill-intensive format as well. I mean, a format I know personally, I think might be the best of all time.
Wow.
I think they've actually been very kind without saying, of course we have the best team in the room. I'm going to say for them, I think they have the best team in the room. I really value Isaac Sears and Andy Beckstrom. Andy Beckstrom's a TCG 50K winner in the last 3 months. Isaac Sears is a Grand Prix top 8 in the last 3 months. I think your team's awesome. Awesome. We'll see what happens. They won their first round, not sure about round 2. So let's move on. Let's have a look at the Austrians briefly. Last few teams, the players are getting seated in the feature match area for round 2. So we're almost ready for live action there. Valentin Mackel is the captain, decent to go with them, and twice so nearly David Reitbauer and the boys in Rome 2009. He was on the team again in 2007.
It's weird to look at an Austrian team without the name Reitbauer, it seems like.
Absolutely.
But Matt Mackel is someone who was traveling to. He was, if we were, the old road warrior label, that would be applied to Mackel. Coming from Europe to North America to play in multiple GPs that he top 8'd.
Okay, why don't we move on to Brazil then, because this was one of our dream chasers. No longer. Willie Adel did not make it to the top 4. Had a bit of a struggle. I think ended up 6'8", somewhere around there, may have been 5'9". But nonetheless, he now turns his attention to Brazil. Thiago Saporito is the other big name there, Ben, and not just for his Pro Tour top 8 in real life.
Yeah, I believe he's a big Magic Online player. I know that several of the Brazilians are, always way up there in the Magic Online Player of the Year standings. I'm pretty sure he's one of them. And those guys, they just play all day. I mean, you're talking about, standard daily after standard daily. So whenever it comes to, standard or limited, the seal deck or standard, the formats that you see on Magic Online firing all the time, you don't want to mess with those guys. Like those guys, they have more experience than anyone.
Right. Willie Adel, also someone who's just on Magic Online all the time.
What do you think, BDM? We talked as we came into the World Championship about where Willie Adel's focus was coming in, and it did feel like he was super invested in this tournament, and actually, in a very unselfish way, less invested in the World Championship. Wanted to do well for himself. But I think if you asked him, would you take an individual world title, or would you take Brazil winning the World Magic Cup? I think he'd take your hand off for this weekend.
Yeah, I actually was surprised by how much work, considering how enthusiastic he was about the World Magic Cup and how much he wanted to do this for Brazil, how much work he put into he had a 5-player team that he was working with for the World Championship, and their standard deck is something that he built, and he really led the charge on. So again, you do have that split focus, but I know that he is desperate to get a little further than they got last year. In the World Magic Cup. They came so close.
I think Willie's just, a pillar of Brazilian Magic. I'm not an expert, but I believe he owns a shop down there. He's run programs to help people get plane tickets before they started giving those out. I think he's just been basically trying to help all the Brazilians qualify for Pro Tours and really expand the Magic scene down in Brazil.
Yeah, and that's important because Carlos Ramau is 12 years ago now as a world champion. Paulo, with his 9 Pro Tour top 8s, he had a difficult World Championship, and we haven't seen him as much on the Grand Prix circuit globally. So right now, Brazil could do with another couple of traveling superstars to join the ranks and be the visible leaders of the community.
We did an interview with Willie Adel at Pro Tour Kanza Tarkir, and he basically said, he's like, look, I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to think about, being married, having kids, and, when I can't play Magic as much. Certainly has an eye on the Hall of Fame. But, he really has made a concerted effort to, someone like Thiago Saporito sort of take that player under his wing and make sure that he's not only able to go to the Pro Tour, but is going to the Pro Tour with as much experience at his back as possible.
Couple more teams to bring you before we head down to the feature match area. How about Hong Kong? This is Li Shi-chan, of course. And although many of you will not know Gama Ip or Stephen Yuen, Menki Zhang has been around at Pro Tours over the last 3-4 years into sort of double figures in terms of PT experience, if memory serves. And they were part of the top 8 in 2007 at New York, your home city, BDM, when they finished 5th in that tournament won by Switzerland over Austria. That's Hong Kong. Let's talk about Israel. But wait, actually, no, I'm hearing that they're ready. But I have to get in. Please, just give me 1 extra minute. England. Let's talk about England.
Well, you know, I'm actually rooting for England this year.
You are?
Yeah.
Why are you rooting for England?
Much like the team, I'm at least half Italian.
It's time for round 2 of the World Magic Cup.